In this video, we're going to talk about the number one skill that most coaches are missing. And it's not a skill that you're going to be able to see generally when you watch demos unless you know exactly what to look for. And if you don't master this skill, I promise you, you'll never be able to be a transformational coach. Today, we're going to talk about a skill that is missing for most people. It's something that everybody can get, everybody can do. It's not difficult at all. It just takes awareness, it takes some understanding, it takes some practice, and it will really change the game for all of you that want to be coaches in any capacity. And it's going to be something, unless you've heard me talk about it, I imagine it's going to be something somewhat surprising because it's not what most people are looking for. It's not what most people think it is. Before I talk about that, I've been teasing a little bit on these videos about one of my favorite concepts, and it fits perfectly for everything that we've been talking about and the journey of coaching for most people. So I was at a speaking event. I was one of the speakers a couple of years ago, and there was a celebrity speaker who was an ex-NFL player, which is professional football, if you're not familiar with that. And he was telling his story about staying motivated and focused and all the things that allowed him to realize his dream of playing professional football. And he was one of the absolute best players when he was in high school. He actually went to the same high school as I did, totally different times, but he was talking about how he was just really, really good. And he got all these offers, all these scholarship offers for colleges as one of the absolute best players in high school. And then in one of the final games, he blew out his knee, I think. He had some major injury to one of his legs. And I mean, in any sport, that's devastating. In football, it's completely devastating, especially for his position. And the scholarships all were taken away because none of the colleges wanted to pay for him anymore since he had this injury. And so he was incredibly depressed. He figured that his dream wasn't going to be able to come true anymore. He didn't have any colleges that he thought he needed to go to in order to get to the National Football League. And he was talking with one of his friends who was also one of the star athletes, and he had these scholarships to go to all these other schools as well. And his friend was just giving him a pep talk. And he, the player was, well, they were both players, but the guy of the story, the main guy of this story, was telling his friend that there was only one school that would allow him to come play, and it was the small school, and nobody had ever made it to the NFL out of this school. And his friend, in consoling him, he just said, if you can play, they'll find you. And so he said, just put your head down and do the work and do everything that you possibly can, because if you can play, they'll find you. And I heard this story, it was probably 2.5 years ago, and that line landed so hard for me, but I didn't know why. I'd never had this actually happen to me where I caught something, I wrote it down, but I didn't know why it was so profound. But I knew it would be profound. I knew that in some point in the near future, that line is going to really mean something. That's going to really land for me. And then about 1.5 years after that, it did. If you can play, they'll find you. It landed for me when we were trying to figure out why most coaches actually struggle and why most coaches don't realize their dreams. And when we looked at whether it was people's sales skills or whether people are outgoing or introverted or extroverted, or what kind of voice they had or what kind of messages they shared or what kind of topics they taught, we were trying to look at all these variables, and then it hit me. Most coaches don't spend enough time getting so good that they have to find you. If you can play, they'll find you. If you become a really, really, really good coach, convinced of what is possible, not just for yourself and your business, in fact, not at all for yourself and your business, more so for what you can do for other people and how you can guide other people into the lives that they want to live and how you can help people achieve the goals they want to achieve and heal whatever needs to be healed in their body, in their mind, in their spirit. If you become that good, they'll find you. You can't not succeed because you'll cross that line of no return. You'll cross that line of I can't not do this. And the reason that most people are failing is because they've never really tapped into that place where their conviction over what's possible and their conviction about what they can do as the coach to help the people, it just isn't big enough. But if you study and become a really good coach, if you can play, they'll find you. My add-on to that for this context is if you can coach, they'll find you. And if you can help, they'll hire you. But see, most people are trying to get hired before they really have become a coach that will command clients. Most coaches are demanding clients. They're trying to learn the sales skills. They're trying to learn the marketing funnels that will bring the clients to them, and their coaching ability and their coaching certainty and their coaching confidence and their coaching energy doesn't command clients because it doesn't deserve the clients that they're wanting to attract. But if you can play, they'll find you. If you can coach, they'll hire you. But that takes intention. That takes commitment. That takes conviction. That takes practice. That takes effort. That takes a lot of mistakes. It'll probably take some tears. It'll probably take some anger. It'll take some wrong decisions. It will cost you time and energy. You'll lose money. You'll have doubts. You'll have worries. You'll have risks. It will cost you the effort of mastery. And everybody is capable of doing that, but most people are just not willing to do that. But see, I think that's a good thing, because if what's going to separate normal coaches from really, really good coaches is just effort, then anybody and everybody can choose to make that effort. So remember, if you can play, they'll find you. If you're not attracting the clients that you're wanting to attract, instead of trying to get better at selling, increase your value. Increase the magnet that will attract the people, rather than trying to find a rope that you can chase them down and corral them with from a further distance out. Increase your value. And what that usually will mean is your internal skills, your certainty. And let's get into this single skill that most coaches don't have that I believe is the difference. I believe is what makes a great coach a great coach, and what makes a so-so coach a so-so coach. Did you catch it? I just did it. It's listening. It's not what people are searching for. It's not what most people think it is. It's not anything that we can see. So when we watch people coach, if you watch demonstrations from coaches or motivational speakers that you watch, most people are not watching for how the coach is listening, because that's not something that's visible. We see what they say. Therefore, we think we need to say what they say in order to be a good coach. We need to understand the exercises. We need to memorize the stuff that comes out of our mouth that's going to transform other people's lives. And while that, of course, is a piece of coaching, that's above the water. That's what you see above the surface. But just like the famous analogy and picture of an iceberg, almost everything is below the surface. So what we see is actually not the secret. We just see what's visible. We see the manifestation of often years and years and years. But the presence, the true connection that coaches have that are really, really good, that allows them to hear what they need to hear, that informs them of what's going on in this other human in front of them, that allows them to pick the words based on what the person is saying. That's all about listening. But you have to know what to listen to. Nobody needs to learn how to listen. Most people just need to give themselves permission to listen, because we have this ego in our brain that believes on some level whoever's talking is the smart one. Whoever's answering the questions is the smart one. So we have this ego drive to answer questions, to facilitate through force on some level. If I'm going to coach you, then I need to be leading you. I need to be driving you. And that's actually not true. It's actually much harder to facilitate a transformation while talking more than listening. So if you had the option to do what's harder and less effective, or to do what's easier and more effective, what would you choose? Of course, you would have to choose what's easier and more effective for the client, more effective for you, actually gives you a lot more certainty. But our ego will almost always choose what's actually harder and what's actually less effective, because our ego has something to gain by speaking. Our ego has something to feel good about if we're the one with the microphone, if we're impressing people with all the things that we know. If we're the one driving the car, then we think we're in charge. We think we're the ones that should be celebrated. It's our desire for celebration, or our desire to feel smart, or our desire to feel good enough, that actually causes most coaches to speak more than they listen. And when they listen, they're listening to speak. They're listening to fix, or they're listening to coach, or they're listening, waiting for that time that they can jump in, right? Most coaches are just playing linguistic double dutch, just waiting for the rope to be in that perfect spot so they can jump in and own the conversation. The best coaches are not answering machines, they're asking machines. But truly transformational coaches know what to ask because they understand the human. So you have to know what to listen to. You're not listening to just what they're saying. The amateur coach listens to what the mouth is saying. The professional and transformational coach knows that what the mouth is saying is one of the least important pieces of information to pay attention to. But you got to understand the whole engine. You got to understand this mind. You got to understand the heart. You got to understand the connection to the body. You got to understand how our beliefs work. You got to understand how our beliefs speak. You got to understand how the voice gives away the secrets so often that the ego is trying to keep. You have to listen to what's wanting to be heard rather than just what's being said. I'm going to repeat that. You have to listen to what's wanting to be heard. The silent voice that's wanting to be heard rather than the loud voice that has the microphone. Because that's where true transformation actually is. You got to listen to what's not being said. Listen to who is speaking and who is not speaking, the identities that have the microphone at any point in time. Is it the head speaking? Is it the heart speaking? Is it the body speaking? Is this a wound speaking? Is this a trauma speaking? Is this a desire speaking? Who's speaking right now? And who wants to speak right now? What's being spoken about? Is this language of fear or is it language of desire? They are actually incredibly different, but oftentimes they use the exact same words. You got to know what to listen to and how to listen. A transformational coach is a transformational listener. And a neurotransformational coach listens to neurology. We listen to the client's body. We listen to the spaces in between the words and in between the letters and in between the breaths. We listen to the cells inside the body that's really trying to share the messages that so often the mouth is afraid to share or is unaware of. That's what a neurotransformational coach listens to. And if you know what to pay attention to and you know how to pay attention, once you learn that listening is an active sport rather than just a passive one where you just sit back and let their words hit your ears and then let your own internal pinball machine play with their words inside and then spit something else out, you've missed the whole thing. You've missed the whole thing. But if you know how to listen actively and you know what to pay attention to, they'll give you everything. They're inside this cell holding onto the bars. They'll give you the key that will allow you to facilitate them to unlock themselves. They'll give it to you, but you have to know what to listen to. And because of the way that we are programmed to speak and the way that we are programmed to listen, most people miss all of this. They miss all of it. We speak unconsciously. We listen unconsciously. We have to listen intentionally. We have to listen consciously. We listen consciously to the unconsciousness, but we have to listen intentionally and actively if we really want to be a neurotransformational coach. And I'm telling you guys, when you learn what to listen to, they'll give you everything. They'll give you their playbook. They'll give you the questions that they need you to ask them. They'll give you the direction that they need the call to go in. They'll give you everything. But if you don't know how to listen and what to listen to, you'll miss it all. The answers are inside, underneath, all around the sounds, the vibrations that are actually coming out of their mouth. And for most people, the language is just in the way of their breakthrough. The language is in the way of their breakthrough. So if the language is in the way, if it's one of the obstacles that's actually blocking them from their breakthrough, and all we do as coaches is listen to the language, then how can we help them with their breakthrough? Because the same language that's fooling them is fooling us. So don't listen to the language that has convinced them of something that's keeping them stuck. Learn how to listen through the language, around the language. It's almost like we ask questions sometimes as a misdirection. It's like, I'm going to ask you a question so I can get your mouth moving so I can look from a different angle and actually see inside to something that you're not seeing. Or get you to say something and then feel something you've never felt before underneath the language that you've never paid attention to before. Because the body tells a story that's different than the one the mouth is telling. Neurotransformational coaching is about changing the cells in our neurology. So we got to listen to the body. We got to listen with our body. When two humans talk, there are two stories being told. One with the mouth and one with the body. The listener is usually listening with their head to the mouth. And that's why not a whole lot gets done at a deeper level. We got to learn how to listen at a deeper level. And we can listen with our body to both stories. We can listen to the one the mouth is telling, but the one we really want is the one the body is telling. Because the body tells the whole story. The body can't not tell a story. The body can't stay silent. Even if people go, okay, body, calm down, cut it out. It can't stay silent. It's impossible. We are beings of vibration. We're beings of emotion. We all have an inner voice that's dying to be heard. Even if we try, we can't shut the body's story down. So then the question as a coach is, are you going to learn how to listen to it? This is really what it's all about. It's neurotransformational listening. And when you can listen at that level, you will create and allow and increase a level of rapport that's already there between humans. We already have deep rapport at a lower level of consciousness than most of us really pay attention to. There's already a rapport. We need to tap into that and then increase it and use that rapport in our coaching. And rapport is not just people liking you. That's one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. They think in order to get into rapport, I need people to like me. It's not about being liked. In fact, quite often, the deeper the rapport you have, the more irritating you will be and the more irritating you can be with your clients. And they won't go anywhere because that rapport is more about connection than comfort. It's more about trust than it is just staying in the familiar surface level communication that most people are in. And from a coaching perspective, rapport is really about responsiveness. If you're in rapport with somebody, they'll respond to you. If you're in rapport with somebody, they'll start to follow you. And that's what we need as neurotransformational coaches. We need a connection where people trust us and they'll follow us. Otherwise, there's not much that we can do for them. And the way that we tap into and connect with and then use that rapport is with expanding this hyper awareness that we have so that we listen to the whole body. We listen to the energy. It's like you just listen to the whole thing. Instead of focusing on a single actor on the screen of the movie, you listen to the entire theater. And what you'll find is that the things coming out of the actor's mouth are some of the least important things. That's neurotransformational listening. Now, if you like this video, check out that video where we break down the 6 core skills you need to be a really powerful and successful coach. I think there are 6 main elements of success, and 3 of them are internal and 3 of them are external. So let's talk about the 3 internal first.